Okay. All right, board members, are we okay to begin? Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Byrd, for joining us. So we have allotted. Yes. Well, welcome back, everyone. Good evening, board members. We have Dr. Zickeyous Byrd with us today. Dr. Byrd, welcome, and thank you for participating in the second round of interviews.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Once again, we have allotted 1 hour for our interview today. We'll begin with a 5-minute opening, the 5 minutes on your part, and then the board members will do a round robin asking you a series of questions. And then we'll leave time for 5 minutes for a concluding statement
Okay.
at the end.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And if you see me, just kind of raise my finger, that lets you know 5 minutes. So
Okay.
this
Yes,
is kind
sir.
of wrap up. Okay, but feel free to begin.
Yes, sir. Okay. Good afternoon. First off, I would like to say thank you so much, board members. I consider this to be an opportunity of a lifetime to sit before you all. I thank you all with so much for the honor, again, of being able to be in this position. It is truly an honor to sit before such a passionate group of board members and educators. I thank you all again so much for this opportunity. But I also want to thank you all so much for the work. The important work that you all do every single day is so important to the lives of our children. And I thank you all so much for being so engaged in the work. And I truly admire all of you all for this hard work. Yeah, I would like to say that this is simply personal to me because as a former MPS employee, as a former MPS parent, and as a resident of this community, I know that we have to get this right. Our children truly deserve the very best that we can offer them. And we have to make sure that we give our children a high quality education so that they can too realize their dreams and fulfill all of their aspirations. And we have a chance to do this right now. And so I thank you all so much for all of the hard work. I thank you all so much for the commitment. And I'm looking forward in hopes of joining you all as we continue to make our city better, as we continue to make sure, again, that our students are afforded all of the opportunities that they deserve so that they can, again, fulfill their life's dreams. And I thank you all again so much for the opportunity to be in this position. I thank you all so much again for the work that you all are doing. And I would just like to join forces with you all again as we continue this work and as we make sure that our students are given the very best opportunities. So again, thank you all so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. We will begin our first question, which will be brought to you by Mrs. Claudia Mitchell.
Good evening and welcome back.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
We're happy to have you this afternoon. And my question has to do a little bit with community engagement. And just wondering, what would you do? How would you build trust with communities that have been historically, that have felt historically excluded or marginalized by the school district? And how would you incorporate their voices into the decision-making processes, particularly in shaping academic improvement?
Thank you so much for that question, Board Member Mitchell. I think, of course, that is very important that our community understands that we simply can't do this work without them. I think, of course, that we need to do a better job of actually engaging our communities. And I think that the way for us to engage our communities is to make sure that we provide clear and transparent communications. We have to make sure that our community realizes, again, that we can't do this work without them. And we have to have them at the table. So we have to make sure, again, that we provide clear and transparent communications, but also we have to make sure that we are using data to drive instruction and decisions. Again, in order to build that trust, the community has to know and understand the way that we make decisions. And again, we have to make sure that we are clear and we're transparent and we inform our communities, again, that data is actually driving all of our decisions. So it's not about anything like kinship, friendship, and buddyship and different things such as that. It's all about the data. The data specifically states that we need to make improvements in this school because of this, that we're making changes to this program because of this. Again, we should be able to communicate so to our communities, to if our communities are actually having questions, and then this culture of using data to drive decisions should be so ingrained and it should be reflective in our daily practices that our community members can actually look to the data and say, okay, I understand why they did this and why they did that. But we also have to make sure that we are bringing them to the table and actually explaining it. Because again, we have to make absolutely sure that everyone is on board. And it is so important for us to develop those partnerships. Because again, in the state that we're in right now, we have to have everybody at the table. But once we get them to the table, we have to make sure that they feel valued, that they feel appreciated. We have to do a better job of engaging our communities. And one way we can do that is that we have to build trust, but we also have to provide that customer service. Again, once individuals, they actually enter our buildings, once they enter our schools, again, they should feel welcome. We have to realize, of course, and understand, and I have to tell people this all the time, that there's a big difference between family involvement and family engagement. Of course, our parents, I think that they are familiar with coming to PTO meetings, and they actually sit there and they receive the information. But truly engaging the parents is making sure that we invite parents to the table and we allow them to help us to make these decisions. So again, so we have to make sure, of course, that we are truly about engagement. We have to make sure that our stakeholders, that they feel valued, that they feel that, and we have to make sure they are trusting us. And one way to do that, again, is to make sure we provide clear and transparent communications, that we actually allow the data to drive our decisions, and also to make sure, again, that our parents and our stakeholders, that they feel valued when they actually enter our buildings. And so I think that that's one way, multiple ways of actually building trust within our communities.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Ms. Pamela Cloud.
Good afternoon
Good
again.
afternoon, Board Member Cloud.
Please summarize the 3 pathways to graduation requirements for Alabama high school students and what instructional tools are used to support these pathways.
Yes, ma'am. So the 3 pathways for our students, those 3 pathways include the general pathway, they include the alternative pathway, and they include the essential pathways. And so, of course, we know, of course, that with the general pathway, of course, that is for our general ed students. And we know, of course, that the other 2 pathways, that they may have modifications along the way. Modifications, of course, for standards, modifications for students with disabilities. And so those are the 3 pathways that we have here in Alabama.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Lisa Keith.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Glad you're
Board Member
back.
Keith. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna probably ask you the same question that I asked the last time, but just take a deeper dive into it.
Okay.
I've always, I feel strongly about this because we have 430 teachers that are emergency certified. That means they've never had an internship. I myself have had numerous teachers call and not have the help they needed from leadership.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when you have that in mind, Dr. Byrd, and you look at the complaints of teachers, the number one complaint is when you're handed a classroom, you have the high end student that knows everything, you have the low end that doesn't. You have the ESL in the classroom, you have the discipline problem in the classroom. I have in my own classrooms now that I teach autistic, okay? So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you this question, okay? And then you can kind of hone in on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Montgomery Public Schools faces systemic challenges, which I just mentioned, okay, in ensuring students reach proficiency in literacy by third grade. I'm going to kind of combine it. Everybody knows the Montgomery data is 16% proficiency in math, 36% in reading, okay? What comprehensive literacy plan would you develop, and how would you ensure that it addresses early intervention, family engagement, and culturally relevant text? I mean, how, given that problem, what is your immediate fix it?
Yes, ma'am. And I thank you so much for that question, Board Member Keefe, and I thank you so much because I can definitely feel your passion and make sure that we actually support our teachers. And I also have that same passion. And you're exactly right. We have about 400 non-certified teachers that are in our schools. And if we look at that in reality, we're saying that about 25% of our teaching force, that they are actually non-certified, that these are individuals that have never taught before, they have never had a student internship, and now they are in our classrooms. We have to make it an absolute priority in making sure that we provide our teachers with the support that they need. And I can't tell you the number of phone calls that I have received from teachers that have been begging for support. And I know that I've done all that I possibly can, and I want to do more in making sure that we actually support our teachers. Now, of course, in all of the positions that I've been in, of course, we've always had the issue, of course, of not having enough certified teachers. But what I've made my absolute mission and priority is making sure that I actually supported those teachers, because I fully understand that we have too much that is at stake. We not only have non-certified teachers in the classrooms with them, but we also have students that are dependent on that high-quality education. So as a district, it has to be our mission. It has to be our number one priority to make sure that we are actually supporting our teachers. And we have to do more than just say it in word. We have to make sure that we're putting together a comprehensive plan that's going to actually address the needs of our students and teachers. And we know, of course, that we need to start from day one. And of course, we all remember, of course, Harry Wong and the first days of school and different things such as that, of course, so that can be our foundation. But again, realizing that our teachers, that they are before our students, so they need more. They need individual support. We need to make sure.
Let me just say this, go here, because I've looked at the praxis. I've looked at each of the praxis. I really have. And I used to, I'm going to tell you, I've changed my mind in the last 10 years. We had a 72% failure rate on the praxis of our emergency certified teachers. And then the state dropped the score, and so now we've at like a 60-some%. Well, I don't know how many board members or people that come up with what some praxis is, but these praxis questions are so detailed, like the English. What line did this poem come from? Walt Whitman, blah, blah. Do you think somebody that graduated in business is going to pass that? There are so many states right now that are getting rid of the praxis, and when we have such a failure rate and so many teachers that teacher retention, we're losing them with these rules on the praxis. What is your opinion of that?
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And of course, I would continue the conversations with the State Department of Education to make sure that we can actually look at that. Because again, that praxis, it is a barrier for a lot of good teachers. It really is. But while we have these teachers in our classrooms, again, we have to make sure that we provide them with high quality support so that they can be high quality teachers. First thing, of course, we need to start from the basics. But again, realizing that time is of the essence, we have to make sure that we teach our teachers about the standards. We have to make sure that we unpack those standards in a way that our teachers understand. Our teachers need to know what to teach, how to teach, and when to teach it. And we have to make sure, of course, that's first. And then we have to make sure, of course, that we are training our teachers on strategic teaching. We have an instructional framework here in Montgomery County, and it's strategic teaching. And I think that it is a wonderful framework for us because it provides, of course, that gradual release of responsibility, that our teachers, that they get the opportunity to engage in before strategies, during strategies, and after strategies. But along the way, we have those formative assessments in place. Those formative assessments are actually meant to guide instruction. And we have to make sure that our teachers, that they understand that. We also have to make sure that our teachers, that they are informed of differentiated instruction so that they can know how, again, to guide that instruction and they can provide those tiers. But also, we have to train our teachers on using data to drive instruction because they need to be able to understand the data so that we can actually put these targeted interventions in place. We have to make sure that we are providing our teachers with the support that they need so we can make sure that they are addressing the needs of our students. And the only way that we're going to do that, Dr. Keefe, is that we're going to have to make sure that we use what we have. Again, we have 430 uncertified teachers in this district. At this time, it's an all hands on deck approach. We need to make sure that we are building capacity inside the buildings, that we are actually building teacher leaders, and that those teacher leaders, that we are building them up so that they won't mind going in and actually providing that support for their coworker. Because again, I'm going to make sure that if I'm blessed to receive this position, I'm going to make sure it's going to be an all hands on deck approach, and I'm going to monitor the way. Like I said before, in central office, we have a large central office. Imagine the number of people that we have here at central office that are also certified to teach, and we're going to go out there and we're going to provide support to these non-certified teachers. So along with the teachers in the buildings, with the instructional leaders that we have in the buildings, with the coaches and central office support as well, we're going to make sure that we actually provide support to our non-certified teachers as well as our certified teachers as well, because we're going to make sure that we actually use that data to drive our decisions and our support.
Well, thank you for being consistent because I really appreciate your answer. The consistency is evident because some of what you said is very real, and I hope you mean that.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Brenda Doremus Coleman.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Board Member Dr. Coleman.
You have served successfully as a superintendent. I'd like to ask about board and superintendent relations. Successful superintendents and school boards do function as governance partners rather than adversaries. How would you establish and maintain a productive, collaborative relationship with the Montgomery County Board of Education?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question, Board Member Dr. Coleman. Yes, ma'am. Of course, I've had the opportunity to serve alongside many boards, and I'm definitely thankful for those opportunities. And of course, out of those opportunities, of course, I've experienced, of course, board members have actually established different frameworks as to from communication and different things such as that. But as a superintendent, I've always considered myself, and with you all, I would be the 8th member on the team. So we would actually govern as one, and we would actually lead as one. But in order for that to happen, of course, we also have to have open and clear, transparent communications. And so I actually would look forward to working with you all, learning all of you all individually, and making sure, of course, that we approach this in a collaborative approach. I believe, of course, that I model collaboration. Of course, I feel as though it's in my DNA. That is how I lead. And so I look forward to working with you all to establish the framework for communication. And again, I consider myself, again, to be a member of the team. And I think, of course, that we will be able to lead this district effectively, again, by having open and transparent communications, by making sure that we actually understand each other. In the past, of course, with all of my different boards, there have been different methods of communication. I remember in my last board, the board preferred that we actually engage in group text. And again, I've always felt that I considered myself, I guess, to be the protector of the board because I never wanted my board to be caught off guard with anything. So I always made sure that if anything came up, I made sure, of course, that I immediately contacted the board members. And I know, of course, and I'm not sure what I know that we have it here, but in Selma, we had a very strong and active street committee. So it was sort of like the game, of course, whether that I had to get the communication to my board members before they actually heard it from the street committee. And so I prided myself in actually doing that. So again, as soon as something happened, because I knew the street committee was coming, but as soon as something happened, I made sure that I sent the message whether to board members to say, hey, this is going on, that is going on. I'm finding out the information. I will keep you updated. Again, because I had to make sure, again, that I protected my board, because again, my board members, and I'm sure like you all, represent thousands of constituents, and I know that the phone was going to start to ring, so I want to make sure you all had that communication. And so that was one method of communication. But again, I look forward to us having a board retreat, and we actually develop the routines and the cadence that we're going to use that actually best fits you all. And so again, I look forward to collaborating with you all. Of course, I know that I actually serve at the pleasure of the board, and I'm going to respect you all in your positions in making sure that whatever information that you need, whatever that you are desiring, that you have it. Again, because I know and I respect you in your positions, knowing that you all are getting hundreds of phone calls within a week. And it's important that you all have the right information. It's important that you all are informed. And it's important that you all are abreast of everything that's going on in the district. So I'm going to make sure that you have exactly what you need. And we're going to beat the street committee.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have so much to say about that street committee, but I will go to Ms. Pamela Portis, who will ask the next question.
Good luck with that one. All right, Dr. Byrd. This is a question, I guess, kind of like Dr. Keats. We not only in keeping our teachers and coaching them up and helping them, what would be your approach to succession planning for school and district leadership? How would you cultivate a pipeline? How would you cultivate a pipeline of future leaders within Montgomery Public Schools to ensure long-term stability?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question, Boardman Portis. And that's a wonderful question simply because I've already done the work. As a matter of fact, when I was employed here in Montgomery Public Schools as Executive Director of Leadership, I was actually charged with actually building a leadership academy. And so I actually partnered with Auburn University, with AUM here in Montgomery, and we actually established the first leadership academy. And so we actually invited teacher leaders, within those teacher leaders in the buildings, also those individuals that actually aspired to be leaders. We actually brought them into the office, and we actually had once a month training with them for the purpose of actually building leadership capacity. Now, of course, I would also make sure that we actually expand that, and we do it in our schools as well, because I think that, again, in a situation where we're in right now, where we need so much support, we have to make sure that we are actually building leadership capacity within our schools, and that is going to help our teachers to feel valued, to feel appreciated, and also as a part of the team. And so I would definitely make sure that we actually expand that. I definitely believe in grow our own leaders, and we would definitely expand the teacher leadership program that we established way before, and we would make sure that we actually expand that.
Thank you. I have one more part to that. I know a lot of times as we build these leaders, sometimes when we talk to our building leaders, and even maybe classified people, they're always talked about they're looked over for promotion. How do we, can you think of a way we could implement knowing who is ready to move on or who's interested in moving on?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Great question. And as a matter of fact, we also implemented the same program in Selma. And again, and I think in that it's important, that we build trust among our employees. And so, of course, that was a very valid concern, whether that employees thought, okay, well, and if I go through this leadership academy, is it going to really work? Well, we made sure that we were very intentional in Selma. And so for all of the teacher leaders, whether that actually went through our leadership academy, we made sure that those individuals, that they were actually granted first rights of some of the positions that we actually had within the district, especially for summer school principals. And so we made sure that we actually that we took the candidates within that we had. We took the individuals that were actually in our leadership academy. Within those were the candidates that actually applied for the summer leadership positions that we had. So those individuals, they were pretty much wasn't guaranteed a position, and we actually put them in some type of leadership capacity. Now, that actually helped to build trust because, again, we actually did exactly what we said we were going to do, and it worked for both of us. We made sure, of course, that we built leadership capacity within our schools because those same teacher leaders, although they were actually attending the monthly sessions, but they were also doing the work within their schools because they had to provide support to some of our non-certified teachers. They had to lead after-school engagement activities. They had to lead after-school tutorial programs. So it actually worked in that we were actually able to build that leadership capacity within our schools, and it also helped in the district as well because we were able to use those same individuals for needed positions that we had during the summer and during the regular school year. So we have to make sure that we're doing exactly what we said that we would do so that it could actually build trust among our employees. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Your next question will come from me, Erica Watkins Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
What strategies would you implement to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of Montgomery Public Schools' budget process while ensuring transparency and accountability to taxpayers?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question, Boardman Walker Smith. So, of course, it is very important that we actually thank our community members and our voters for actually approving the ad valorem tax. We have to thank, of course, our community members and our stakeholders for what they continuously do for Montgomery Public Schools. And one way that we do that, again, is to make sure that we are clear and transparent. I'm a person that I believe in absolute transparency. I believe that we have to provide clear and transparent communications. But like I said before, we also have to be about using data to drive our decisions. And that is one way that the community would actually trust us, that if they know exactly what their funds are being spent on, and we have actually made a promise within two voters, to myself, because I'm included in that as well. We have made a promise within that we were going to use the additional funds to actually to improve Montgomery Public Schools. And so one way that the board has already done that is the board has already put together a strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, of course, it is tied into our successes, it is tied to our challenges, it is tied to our initiatives, it's tied to our priorities, it is tied to all of the things that we said that we were going to do to improve our school district. But with being tied to all of those different areas, funding is also tied to those areas as well. So what I propose doing, of course, is having an open portal that actually lists all of the key things that we said that we were going to do. So as superintendent, I intend to put together a 100-day plan. That 100-day plan is going to detail all of the things that we're going to address immediately. And I intend to make that plan visible for all of our stakeholders with a portal. And so they can actually look at that portal and see how we are actually progressing, those things that we've been able to accomplish, those things that we have not been able to accomplish. But most importantly, to directly answer your question, funding is going to be tied to that as well. Now, of course, as board members, as superintendent, we are accustomed to receiving the financial report from the CSFO, where we understand the financial report because we have been trained to read those reports. We got to make sure that we make those reports more accessible for our stakeholders. We have to make sure that we explain it in a way that they can easily understand. And so I would make sure that we actually put that report out, but also that we are tying all of our expenses, and this is important for you all as well, because again, anything that I would bring before you, that I want you to know that this is actually tied to this aim on our strategic plan, that is actually tied to this aim or goal on our strategic plan. And that way, everyone is held accountable. And again, we are using data. We're using the data that we have, again, to inform our decisions. And I think that that's going to help to build trust for Montgomery Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Byrd.
Yes, ma'am.
You answered actually several questions for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
We'll lead with Ms. Claudia Mitchell on your next question.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your passion.
Thank you, Board Member Mitchell.
What role do you see the superintendent playing in advocating for the needs of Montgomery Public Schools at the city, the county, and the state levels? Then I wonder, how would you effectively engage the elected officials and the community leaders in support of Montgomery Public Schools?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question, Board Member Mitchell. Yes, ma'am. The superintendent is directly responsible for making sure that he actually shares the vision of Montgomery Public Schools. Of course, that vision, of course, is going to be guided by, of course, input from the community. And we have to make sure, of course, that we're actually effective in actually communicating that mission, communicating our vision. And one way that we can do that, again, is making sure that we provide clear, transparent communications, making sure, again, that we are communicating often. Again, no one should have to wonder what we're doing and why we're doing it, because we're going to make sure that we are clear and transparent with everything that we're doing, all of our successes and also our opportunities for improvement as well. We have to make sure that we are being honest with the people. We have to make sure that we are being honest with our stakeholders. And again, everything that we do has to be guided by data, because again, there is a sense of mistrust within that is out there, and so we have to make sure that we actually address it. One way of addressing it, again, is to make sure that we are informing everybody of what we need to do, and we're going to use data in order to make that happen. The reason why that we are moving forward with this initiative is because the data speaks to it. The reason why we chose to stop this initiative is because the data actually spoke to it. And we have to make sure that we are engaging all of our stakeholders. We have to make sure that we are bringing them to the table. But most importantly, we have to make sure that everyone feels valued, everyone feels appreciated, and we have to make sure, again, that everyone understands that there is a role to play. We know, of course, that in order to improve our city, education is at the heart of it. And we can't improve our city until we actually address education. In education, we can't do it alone, because we know that we are facing some community barriers that are out there, and we need the help from all of our stakeholders in order to address it. So my mission and my vision will be to go out and actually compel everyone in the city of Montgomery, all of our stakeholders, all of our politicians, all of our church leaders, everyone, all of our parents, all of our stakeholders. My mission would be, let's come together, let's reason together, and let's make sure that we get this right, because this impacts us all. And we cannot succeed unless all of us, we actually come together, bind together, we put our collective heads together, and we get this right. Again, in education, again, we have a huge burden that's on us, and we have to accept it. We have to accept it. But we have to call on all of our stakeholders to help us along the way as well.
Thank you so much
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Ms. Pamela Cloud.
Again, Dr. Byrd,
Thank you so
nice
much.
for you to be here.
Thank you so much.
What strategies, according to federal law, would you adhere to and implement to improve academic achievement in Title I school improvement, Year 3+ schools? And can you provide an example of a successful school improvement initiative you've led or observed?
Yes, ma'am, most definitely. Thank you so much for that question. So we have to make sure, of course, again, that we start off by providing high-quality instruction, making sure, within that we are providing high-quality instruction to all of our students. Make sure, of course, within that our instruction, that it is guided by research, and to make sure, of course, within that it is effective. So we have to make sure, again, within that we're providing high-quality instruction. We also, again, have to make sure that we are providing targeted interventions, those interventions that they can actually occur before school, during interventions, as well as after school as well. Also with Saturday school as well. We have to make sure that we are engaging our partners. We have to make sure, of course, that we are actually building a culture and climate of high expectations, ensuring, of course, that everyone is familiar with the core values, that we have, and making sure that everyone is on the same page, and we all understand the mission that we have to make sure that we provide our students with an excellent education. So we have to build that culture. And also, we have to make sure that we are bringing our partners to the table, to make sure, again, that our families, that they are engaged, making sure that we are providing those extended learning opportunities for family engagement, making sure, again, that we are addressing all of our barriers. You know, we actually did that in a lot of the schools in Selma as well, and I'm actually so proud of one of the schools. This school was actually recognized for significant school improvement. We actually improved by 25 points at this one school in reading. And I bring this school up because this school sits right across from one of the public housing complexes that we have. And the public housing complex is known for, again, daily shootings. And so this school, of course, and again, we have many schools, but this school I want to talk about with it simply because it was the norm. And I just hate it so bad, but it was the norm almost for just about every week. This school was actually on lockdown. It was on lockdown. I mean, it was just a part of the norm because of the daily shootings that would occur right across the street. But I'm so happy for this school and so proud of this school because they remained focused. That even while the students were on the floor and while the teacher was on the floor, engagement and education still occurred. And that was the culture that we actually had in place. Even while they were on the floor, teachers still found a way to make sure that our students, that they learned, because again, those lockdowns, they would last for hours. They would last for hours. But they made it happen. They actually, they adhered to our call and our plea to let's do right for our children. Yes, it may be trouble going on outside in the community, and yes, they may face it whenever they go home, but while they are here, we were going to make sure that we provided them with a high quality education. And as soon as the lockdown was over, I was on my way to the school, central office was on the way to the school, and we were there to provide that support that they needed. So although, of course, the shooting across the street was the norm, our students knew that we were going to continue education for them.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Lisa Keith.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot on this one.
Okay.
Dr.
Yes, ma'am.
Byrd,
Yes, ma'am.
because we're supposed to be digging a little bit deeper.
Okay,
And I've
yes,
not
ma'am.
asked this question, but it is in here, and I'm going to kind of curve it.
Okay.
I think, in my opinion, I know you come from the Selma district, and you look at the Montgomery, and the demographics are very similar.
Yes,
When you look at your board makeup, when you look up your staff makeup, when you look at your teacher leadership makeup, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
We recently did a curriculum audit, and I'm reading from your phase 100-day plan. You have stated that you'll implement equity audits to ensure students have equitable opportunities to succeed and to close the opportunity gaps. Let's change that.
Okay.
Let's change that to employees. Let's change that to personnel. Because I did my research, and I think you may have done this in some like a position audit, but here we have an equity audit.
Okay.
Once all is said and done, okay, and you look at the numbers, and you see that they're not equitable, okay. How are you going to handle that? So you've got all your data. Here's my question: equity and access emerged as core concerns. Obviously, I just mentioned that. in the leadership profile central office. How do you define educational equity, and how would you ensure that all district policies, programs, and initiatives are centered on equity? And I want to add this because one of the biggest complaints of some of our leadership is people leave. People leave, and then all of a sudden the people that leave, those job descriptions are handed to people, and then all of a sudden now they're doing double the job duty, and they're not getting paid for it. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So that's not helping us with retention, especially with you being here. But you know this system. We've got people with 28, 29, and 30 years ready to leave us. So I've handled you a loaded question. How will you handle the data when you see it's not equitable?
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you so much for that question, Board Member Dr. Keith. Yes, ma'am. And so you're saying what, and that I've already been handed the data? And so I know, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to address it. We're going to address it. Of course, what's the use of data if we don't do anything about the data? And so we have to make sure that we address it. And so if I'm fully understanding the question, we're talking about making sure that everyone is entitled to equitable positions across the district. And so we will address that by simply addressing it. We will addressing it. So I think that one way to do that is to have open, honest, transparent communications. Talk to me about what are some of the things that you're actually fielding, because what I want to do, of course, is to make sure that, and again, we're going to constantly survey our employees. We're going to make sure, again, that we are providing customer service when that they need. And so that means that we're going to survey central office leadership, our central office employees, and we're going to survey everyone, because I want to make sure that the individuals that you are reporting to are actually responsive to your needs. But yes, ma'am.
Let me add this. When you have employees, because we do, that do that extra job.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean, when I say extra job, literally extra jobs.
Okay.
And then you have HR saying, well, you know what, we don't have that position, and I'm sorry, we're just going to pay you a stipend. And you see these employees have reasonable gripes that, hey, why am I doing the job of 2 or 3 people? Can you not consider making a new job description? How do you feel? Would you entertain that, or would you just go just like, well, nope, we don't have that? You know, how would you handle that employee?
Most definitely. We would most definitely entertain that, because I want to make sure, again, that I'm listening to the needs of our employees. And one way that we can actually do that, again, is for me to establish open and transparent communications. There are many ways, of course, to speak with me. I think that everyone knows that I'm a very approachable person, and I want to make sure that we are actually taking care of our employees. You know, there's a book, of course, and I know that you know about it, coming from Dr. Connors, that the book was entitled, of course, If You Don't Feed Your Employees, or if you don't feed your teachers, they would actually eat the students. Well, it's the same thing, of course, even with central office workers as well. If we do not address the needs of our employees, we are not going to get quality work. And the only way to address the needs of our employees is to make sure that we are hearing from our employees. I look forward to the opportunity to sit with our employees. I look forward for the opportunity to read my emails, to listen to my voicemails, to read my text message. Again, there are many ways, of course, to get in contact with me. And everybody, of course, will have my cell phone number, because that's just the kind of person I am. I'm very open, I'm very relatable, I'm very approachable, and I want to hear their concerns. In all of my school districts, I've always had an open door policy, and I know, of course, that people are saying that that's going to be different in Montgomery, and I understand that. But I'm going to do my very, very best not to move away from the person that I am. And in order for us to make sure that we are, again, taking care of our students, we have to take care of our employees. So I want to hear directly from our employees about the concerns that they have. If they are doing multiple jobs, we're going to make sure, of course, that we have equity audits, even in personnel. We're going to make sure that we align our personnel to make sure that we have the right people in the right positions to get the work done. And also to listen from our employees, because, again, if they are doing multiple tasks, I definitely understand that. If they're doing multiple tasks, then it is incumbent upon me to find out why. Why are they performing multiple duties? Okay, let's look at another position. What I notice here, that this employee has 10 things assigned to them and you only have one thing assigned to you. Let's actually talk about this. Let's look at it. So I look forward to having those conversations with HR. I look forward to looking at all of the positions within that we have, because I know that is truly a concern that we have in the district. Also, we have to make sure, again, that we're not losing our valuable employees. Again, and I'm going to say this as well, in all of the districts that I've been in, and I hate to say it because I love my city, I love this board, but I've been able to steal a lot of employees from Mobile, from schools. I've always been able to steal employees from MPS, and they have followed me 70 miles in one way. And I think that the reason why that they have followed me is because they know me, and they trust me, and they know that I'm going to make sure that they are treated right and they're treated fairly. But most importantly, I'm going to make sure that I value the work that they do. And I wish I had some more time in it, because I would love to tell you some more about but I really do. I really do appreciate that
Thank
question.
you.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
was
Thank you so much.
Couldn't be a better answer.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Brenda DeRamus Coleman.
Thank you again. When you were responding, Dr. Byrd, to my colleague from District 6, you spoke about stakeholders and trust and input, et cetera. My question, or yes, the item that I'd like for you to talk about, describe a time when you worked with a school board to navigate a controversial decision. What was your approach and what was the outcome?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question. Okay. I'm going to be brutally honest. Okay. All right. So, one. Okay. When I arrived at Selma City Schools, because again, I'm a very data-driven person, but one of the things that I wanted to put in place is that, again, I wanted to make sure that we were providing our students with a high-quality education. I wanted to make sure that I was aware of the students that were not achieving, and I also wanted to make sure that I was aware of the teachers that could actually do a little bit more. And so I actually put in place what I call end of the quarter assessments. And so basically the way that it was set up is that I made sure, of course, within that during the summer that we actually developed pacing guides. I made sure, of course, within that we had standard pacing guides, so all of our teachers, again, could understand what they were actually expected to teach and when they were expected to teach it. We made sure, of course, that we unpacked the standards. We made sure that we trained the teachers on those standards. We made sure that we actually provided the teachers with the tools that they need to be able to teach effectively. Okay. So we made sure, of course, so teachers, they had their pacing guides. Of course, administrators, they actually knew the task that was at hand. Well, and so, of course, we actually encouraged our teachers, of course, to make sure that they engaged in formative assessments, to make sure that they were engaged in summative assessments as well. But I wanted to make sure that at the end of the quarter, that we also made our own district-wide assessments that would actually assess the way that the standards were actually taught, to ensure that the standards were taught. So I put in place end of the quarter assessments that were based on the pacing guide. Again, teachers, they had to complete autonomy to create whatever test that they needed to create during the school year. But at the end of the quarter, I actually made sure that we put end of the quarter assessments in place. So in order to make sure, of course, that the students that they took the test seriously, the test actually counted for 20% of their quarter average. Okay, and so that was the big accountability piece. Again, making sure, again, that everyone knew that we were going to be accountable. So teachers, of course, teachers knew that these were the standards that you were going to be tested on. Students knew that these were the standards that you were going to be tested on as well. So teachers were going to be held accountable, students were going to be held accountable. So at the end of the first quarter, the results revealed exactly what I thought that they would reveal. Is that so a lot of our students did not score well on the end of the quarter assessments, which in turn, of course, impacted their final quarter average. So for the students that were accustomed to making A's all quarter long, when now all of a sudden you have the end of the quarter test that's actually based on the standards that the teacher should have taught, now all of a sudden you have a 50 or a 60 on your end of the quarter exam that is actually counting 20% of your final quarter grade. So it caused a big disruption. Of course, because all those students that were so accustomed to making A's, well, now all of a sudden we're looking at the data here and it's saying, okay, now although you have a 95 average, these are the standards that your teacher was supposed to be teaching. Here I am testing you on these standards. Now all of a sudden we have an imbalance. So of course, it actually, it caused chaos with them. But my point in actually doing that was to make sure that we actually take instruction seriously. Again, and I wanted our teachers to understand that we have to make sure that we are teaching the standards and we are testing the standards the way that they were actually meant to be tested. So it opened up the opportunities for us to talk about depth of knowledge questions. But also, as I was trying to explain to the many parents and the board members, this is the data that we need in order to make the improvements that we need. Yes, these children, they have A's, but look at here, right here. Look at, we need to look at how our teachers are teaching, but also how our teachers are actually testing. And so, but of course, now I actually went back and I actually went in, and then we didn't, of course, count the grades. We didn't allow the end of the quarter test to impact the final quarter grade, but it opened up the conversation for more dialogue. It opened up the conversation about look at what we are teaching, looking at how we are teaching, but let's look at how we are testing it. That actually, of course, now it was controversial again for the first quarter, but second quarter, our teachers were far more intentional because our teachers knew that we were going to hold them accountable. Our students were also more intentional as well, but it allowed me the opportunity to have real conversations with our parents to say, parents, yes, this may be an A, but I want to make sure that this is a real A. I want to make sure that, yes, our students are on the A honor roll, and I'm very, very proud of them, but I want to make sure that these are, in fact, real A's that will actually stand against any school. And so it was controversial with them, but it actually worked because we were able to improve our achievement scores.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Our next question will come from, I'll give it just a second, will come from Ms. Pamela Portis.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make it short because of time. As soon as I find it. You know, and because you know our district, you know that we've had much leadership turnover here. How would you build and sustain a culture of transparency, trust, and continuous improvement to ensure long-term progress in student achievement and literacy?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question, Board Member Portis. Yes, ma'am. So how would we build a community of continuous trust? That, again, that we will make sure, of course, that we are providing clear and transparent communications, making sure that we are communicating often and making sure that we are fully transparent about what's going on in our district, making sure that we are not only sharing our successes, but also making sure, of course, that we are fully transparent with our challenges as well. Making sure, again, that everyone understands the task that is at hand, making sure that everyone understands the vision, and making sure that everyone understands our vision, and making sure, of course, that we are accountable to our stakeholders, and making sure, again, that we are always open and transparent with our data, making sure, of course, that we're always open and transparent, and making sure that we are engaging our stakeholders, but also making sure that we are committed to ongoing improvement and ongoing support. Again, everyone should know and understand the vision that is at hand. Our vision is to make sure that we are providing our students with a high-quality education. So that has to be the focus. Our strategic plan actually speaks to that, and we have to make sure that we are fully transparent in making sure that everyone understands where we are, where we're headed, the challenges that we have, but also we're going to share our successes as well.
All right, and I'm Erica Watkins-Smith. I'll be asking the last question. This is more so a line of the finances. As you know, we have an local ad valorem that's increased our funding. My question to you is, with these with the monies that we have, MPS is definitely committed to transparency and accountability in fiscal management. How will you continue to explore strategies to stabilize our enrollment, maximize our fund utilization, and sustain our district's financial health?
Okay, all right, yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you so much for that question, Boardman Walker-Smith. So I think, again, that it starts with transparency, making sure that we are doing exactly what we said we would do. And I think, of course, what in that it's important to make sure that everyone understands our strategic plan and make sure that what in that our strategic plan, that it is open out there for the public, making sure that all of our expenditures, that they are actually tied to our strategic plan, but also making sure that we actually continue to look at our reserves and we are exploring ways to cut expenses where we can, but also looking for ways to bring in additional revenue where we can as well. We realize that right here in Montgomery that we have many threats that are actually facing us. We know, of course, what in that we have the Choose Act. We know, of course, that our parents now have many opportunities to send their children to charter schools, to private schools, and many other things. So we have to make sure, of course, what in that we are competitive. We have to make sure that we are providing our students with the best opportunities so that we can make sure that we continue to grow our district. We have to make sure that we are innovative in our practices, and we have to make sure that we are doing things that other districts aren't doing. We have to make sure that we are building a district that is so strong that no one can get a better education anywhere else. So we have to think about those things that are out there, those things that are relevant as well. We have to look at things that we can actually improve upon. And there are many opportunities to do that. Also, and in many of my other districts, of course, and I have been given this name as the cutter because in a lot of my other districts, I've always I've always worked in districts that actually had financial struggles. And so I always had to go in and actually look at ways that we can actually cut costs. And so we would definitely do that as well. We will make sure that we are utilizing our funds in a way that they should be utilized. We will make sure that we are actually reducing programs that are not in use. And we will actually reinvest that money into our employees. I believe, of course, that we should be looking at offering our employees some incentives to make sure that we are recruiting the best employees and retaining the best employees as well. We also need to make sure, of course, that we are rewarding our employees for their hard work. We should be looking at incentives for student achievement. I've actually done that in multiple districts that I led. Again, it is just a way to let our employees know how much we actually value them and the hard work that they actually give us every single day. So we will make sure, of course, that we are good stewards of our funds by making sure that we are looking at ways to cut expenditures, but also looking at ways that we're going to bring in additional revenue as well. And to sum it all up, we're going to make sure that we are transparent and we actually provide a portal that allows all of our stakeholders to see exactly where our money is going.
Thank you, Dr. Byrd.
Thank you, Dr. Byrd. You now have an opportunity for a concluding statement.
Again, thank you all so much for this opportunity. Again, I am just simply honored just to be in your presence. I am a big admirer of all of you all, and I think I know all of you all. I know, of course, that what stands before me are some wonderful educators, and you all have given this district your very, very best, and I truly thank you all so much. I so badly want to be a part of your team simply because I absolutely love this city. I absolutely love our children. I absolutely love our communities. And I have a vested interest in making sure that we actually get this right because I'm not going anywhere. As I oftentimes would tell my family, all of my family members are actually from Pritchard and Mobile. I oftentimes tell them that I would definitely come and visit, but I'm not spending the night. I'm going to get back on the road and I'm getting back to Montgomery because this is the place that I absolutely love. I love spending time with our children. I love visiting our churches. I love visiting our parks. I love everything about our city. I love the opportunity to go into Winn-Dixie and the Dollar Tree, and I choose to go to those places simply because that's where our young people work. I absolutely love the opportunity. You know, my wife, she actually fusses all the time because when I go to a store, it actually takes me a while because more likely I'm there talking. And I'm there with and talking, and I'm encouraging our young people out now. And I'm so guilty of this because I'm big on customer service, and I'm big on making sure that we actually instill, good character in our children. And so, anytime that I'm at a cash register, I speak to I make sure I speak to the cashier, and I make sure that they speak back. I make sure, of course, that I give them little tips and nuggets along the way and say, okay, now you got to make sure that you are providing this good customer service because you never know if your employee is actually looking. I make sure that I actually take time to engage with our young people because they are so important. They are the ones that are going to take care of us when we need to be taken care of. They are the ones that are going to lead our city. So we have to make absolutely certain that we get this right. We have so many wonderful students, and they are going to achieve so many wonderful things. And I just can't wait to actually witness it. But we also have some students that are going through some trouble. We have some students that are facing barriers that we cannot even imagine. We have students that face more traumas in a week than we have ever faced in a lifetime. And we have to make sure that we understand those barriers, but we have to make sure that we are Superman and Superwoman, and we got to go in and we got to go and knock down those barriers because our children, they need us. And the best way we can prepare them for life, the best way that we can actually prepare them for the opportunities that they have before them is to make sure that we give them a high quality education. And I'm going to say this, and I hope I still have time, but I'm going to say this well, but I remember in one of the Teacher Institute things that we had about a year before last, and the theme for that year's institute was superheroes. And so I wanted that theme. So we had the theme of superheroes. And I remember reflecting, I remember giving my speech before our teachers, and I was telling them about my favorite superheroes. And of course, I had them to name some of their favorite superheroes, but I told them that my favorite cartoon, my favorite superhero from the old time was Thundercats. Now, I know, of course, I know, of course, where you all may have to think a little bit further, but though my superhero of that time was Thundercats. And I remember that with the Thundercats, that whenever Lionel, who he was the leader, whenever he was get ready to call, whenever he needed help, he had a call that he would actually yell out and he would say, Thundercats, ho! And at that time, everyone that heard it, everyone that actually saw the image, they came running. They came running to his rescue. That is what I would actually like to encourage our employees today, that they are superheroes. And as the leader of this district, I am begging them. We have a task that is before us, and we have many superheroes that are actually in this district. I want to call upon all of our superheroes, and let's get together and let's actually save our children. Let's actually save our city. We can do this. We can do it, and I'm so ready to join with you all, and let's be superheroes for our children. Thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Okay, we'll be back at 3:30, 11 minutes.